But thank you very much, and I'll hand over to my colleague Oliver, who's going to tell you all about NOCRI and its great work.
Yep. Yes, so first of all, a few words about NIHR. So NIHR is the National Institute for Health Research. And the NIHR is basically the organization that manages NHS-funded clinical research, or NHS money that goes towards clinical research, predominantly into infrastructure, i.e. salaries, people, houses, and beds. And NOCRI is an office within that, within the NIHR, that is largely focused on collaboration across the infrastructure, but collaboration with industry. So I'm really here to talk to you about translational research partnerships, which is part of what we do and part of what I do. But before I do that, I wanted to introduce the general environment and landscape of translational research as the NIHR sees it. So about 7 years ago, something really extraordinary happened. So what happened is that the NHS decided, Sally Davis decided, who's the head of the NIHR, the chief medical officer, to consolidate translational research in the NHS into centers of excellence. And so what was funded at the time or created were biomedical research centers and biomedical research units. They're essentially the same thing, only different in scale. So biomedical research centers are well-funded centers, well-funded centers, usually located within with the big teaching hospitals that have a broad disease focus. Some don't have a disease focus, or the original big ones like Cambridge, Oxford, UCL, Imperial don't have a disease focus. It's broad across a number of disease areas. The biomedical research units are smaller units of the same kind of where translational research happens, and they have a disease focus. So there's many more of them, and they are about the tenth of the scale of a biomedical research center. But these are the powerhouses of translational research as we see it, and I say in a little bit more in a little bit of time what I understand about translational research. These are the powerhouses, and these are the people and the centers that we, together with the clinical research facilities that go on top of that the NIHR funds, and that we, within the office that I work in, within NOCRI, make accessible to you in industry. So what NOCRI is, as Mark said, the NIHR Office for Clinical Research Infrastructure, and we are the single point of contact to that environment of NHS-funded clinical research, translational research. And what we do is we put you in touch with people, we introduce you to key opinion leaders, we establish collaborations between industry and individual centers, and we, in some of our models, like the translational research partnerships that I'm going to talk about in a minute, we also manage those collaborations hands-on. And I tell you a little bit about how we do this. So first of all, what is a translational research partnership? It is quite a unique structure, it is, the TRPs are, maybe if I go to this figure, each of the bubbles, each of the petals of the flower is an academic center. And when we mean academic center, we mean a university and its local NHS trusts. Think academic health science centers, if that means anything to you. So each of these centers has agreed to collaborate in this partnership with industry to common business principles using standard agreements, standard contracts and templates, and share patients and resources and capabilities. So what the TRPs do is they combine the leading UK expertise and capabilities in translational research and experimental medicine in a particular disease area into one complete offering. And we at NOCRI market this offering to industry and help you in industry to work with that with those partnerships. We are a single point of contact for the TRPs, and we operationally run them. This is an internationally unique model. You don't find this anywhere else in the world. And the current TRPs, we have two, are based on the UK's track record in inflammation. They're the first TRPs. And inflammation was chosen specifically because there was a real, there was something to do with industry in the inflammation space. And also the UK's track record is very strong. We wouldn't have the anti-TNFs today if it wasn't for the work that was done at the Kennedy Institute. So the track record is really strong, and we have a compelling offering in inflammation. That doesn't mean we don't have a compelling offering in the other areas, but the TRPs are currently in inflammation, and we are thinking about other TRPs currently. There's two, one focused on respiratory medicine and one focused on joint and related inflammatory disease, which is essentially rheumatology and the associated rheumatic diseases. So what do they do, the TRPs? And that's where I think we have to talk again what translational research means. To us, translational research means patients. And it starts with preclinical research. It starts with animal models. It starts with tissue models. And it then spans the whole spectrum across biomarkers to patient stratification for well-designed trial and to the execution of phase 2 proof-of-concept studies. And so what we do in the TRPs is we cover that whole space. And the TRPs, as I said before, they're exclusively focused on working with industry and collaborating with industry. The TRPs are made up of the individual units of universities, NHS partners, biomedical research centers, biomedical research units. So all those capabilities we bring together into the TRPs and therefore have everything you need to run successfully a translational research program, wherever you started, whether you started with the preclinical research or whether you come in with an established biomarker or whether you have all that already done and you are simply looking to design the best possible proof of concept trial. And NOCRI supports the whole process. Of course, you can imagine this is very difficult if you think about the legal side of things. Each of those trusts and universities is their own legal entity. They all have to sign the contracts. It's very difficult to manage. And that is what makes the TRPs really unique. So we've done all that hard work for you to establish those collaborations across different legal entities. So we've brought them all together. We essentially act as a funnel and as a single point of contact, and that allows you to actually work this complex beast and to work it quickly and with high quality. What we do is we support. Once we start talking to a company, to an industry partner, and to the TRP, we put together. There's a certain process that we follow. So we start with a confidentiality agreement that we put in place with you, and we then work with you and the participating academic centers in terms of setting up a project. We negotiate a contract. We help you when it's a clinical study with designing the final project plan and the study protocol. You may already have strong ideas how you want to do this, but we can certainly input in the study protocol and into the study design. We then work with you through the contractual agreements, and we also, importantly, help you navigate the clinical research, the ethics, the approvals, the regulatory approvals that you need to put in place to actually run a clinical study. And once the clinical study runs, we performance monitor it, we stay with you in the collaboration, and we make sure that the individual centers and trusts deliver what they've promised to deliver. And this has been very successful. You see here a quote from one of our partner companies, Chiesi Pharmaceutici, who are running a phase 2 proof of concept trial in respiratory medicine with us, who are extremely delighted with how this whole thing has worked out for them. It doesn't have to be a phase 2 proof of concept studies. We have projects across the whole spectrum, from preclinical programs to biomarker programs to experimental medicine studies that really scope out a particular disease area or something like anti-TNF non-responders, for example. So the breadth of the project is broad. One thing I wanted also to mention, even though these are not TRPs, but because of the discussion this morning and the general interest in oncology, I think is also very important when we talk about the translational research environment and landscape in the UK, that we must not forget the experimental cancer medicine centres. So these are, there's 18 of them across the UK, and as the name says, focus exclusively on cancer, working very closely with the National Cancer Research Network. And so if you have a project, and we market the experimental cancer medicine centres together with the ECMC Secretariat, who are also here today, and it is something that I think is, particularly to this audience, very important to be aware of, that these are the powerhouses of experimental cancer medicine. And if you need key opinion leaders in cancer, if you look to collaborate around your projects, preclinical projects in oncology, these are the people to go to, and you can find them through us, or you can find them directly through their secretariat. Whichever route you take will put you in touch with them. And that's the end of my 10-minute slot.